copyright and content capture. So it may well be legal and acceptable to use certain copyright protected materials in lectures and seminars. It could be images in PowerPoint presentations, or it could be video clips that you're using from a commercially produced DVD. So in normal lectures, yeah, it can be absolutely fine to use those sorts of materials. But it might not be legal or acceptable to record the use of these materials if you're using Panopto or any other means of content capture. So it might not be legal to use these materials unless the copyright in the material you're using has expired, or you might own that material and you have the copyright in that yourself, or the University of Portsmouth owns the copyright in that material, or you have specific copyright clearance to use the material in this particular way. And this is because the recording the lecture using a tool like Panopto is classified as making another copy of that material, and so therefore it can be a copyright infringement. Some important things to remember then. So you are responsible for making sure that your recorded lectures do not infringe copyright. So that's for you to check. And to bear in mind that both you and the university are at risk of being sued for infringing copyright. I'm sure it is probably pretty rare for that to happen. I have come across cases where institutions have come a cropper, perhaps not through recording lectures, but for other copyright infringements. I heard of a case of a university which was using photographs that they believed could be using in a perfectly legitimate way, but the photographer caught up with them and was demanding, I think, £2,500 for the use of these photographs. So there are people out there who are actively looking for content which is not being used legally. So anyway, we just need to be careful. Now, simply placing copyrighted material within a password protected area, be that Moodle or whatever, that does not make it legal. It is still unauthorized copying. So it might be legal to use certain materials in class, but it might not be legal to use them in a recorded lecture. The university does have a notice and takedown policy, and that is found within the university's copyright policy. If you particularly want to read that, you will find that within the university's document warehouse. And towards the end of that policy, there will be something about notice and takedown. So there are policies in place to take down material where it is found and known to be infringing copyright. So that can be done if necessary. Okay, but I don't want to dwell too much on the negatives today. I want to sort of think particularly about things that you can do when using content capture. One of the things that you might be doing is using your own material. So, so it may be your work. It could be something you've produced for a journal or whatever. But you may have already signed away the copyright to this if you've had it published in a journal, for example. So you do need to check any publishing agreement just to see how it can be used. Okay, so check your publishing agreements to see if you can reuse legally this published material. It may be possible to use the preprint version of an article, including the illustrations. Now, if you need any help with this sort of aspect of things, then I recommend that you get in touch with our research outputs team. You can find out all about them if you're not familiar with them, again, from the library website. Just go to the library website and look for the link to support for researchers, and there'll be contact details there for the research outputs team. I'm sure they'll be very happy to help you. If you wish to use extracts of journal articles, then I would add that it may be possible to do this under our CLA license quite legally. Again, if you want to know more about the license, contact me. And there's information again on the library website about requesting digitizations and getting journal articles and that sort of thing digitized for you. Right, let's look now at some other specific issues, and particularly the use of images. During this lockdown, in fact, I'd say 95% of my time has been spent dealing with copyright queries, of which I'm getting, perhaps not surprisingly, during this changing time, I'm getting quite a few of those. And many of them have related to the use of images. So let's say something about that now. So, of course, it's very easy to download images from the internet and insert them into your presentations. But these images will almost certainly be subject to some form of copyright. And unless you own the copyright yourself, then it's not legal or acceptable just to download them and use them in your recorded lectures. Now, of course, they're a powerful aid, and they may often form an essential part of your teaching, of course. But fortunately, there are plenty of ways in which you can legally use images in your recorded sessions. So, for example, you could use an image where the copyright has expired. So here's one, for example, that I've just plucked almost at random from, this is from the British Library's Flickr site, where they have uploaded hundreds, I think, of images which they believe to be free of copyright when the copyright has expired. So where you find images like that, you are absolutely free to use those, no problem at all. Another option is to find images which are available under a Creative Commons license. So here's one I have found of one of my favourite parts of the world. This is a picture of Wastwater with the wonderful Great Gable in the background. And as the acknowledgement shows at the bottom of the picture, it is available under a Creative Commons license. Again, you are completely free to use it under this license, as long as you provide an acknowledgement to the creator, which is what I have done there. So there are countless images available under Creative Commons licenses that you could use. The other thing, of course, you can do is to use your own image. So I have a similar photograph that I have taken. And of course, if you've taken a photograph yourself, then you can do whatever you like with it. No problem there at all. I'd also draw attention to the use of licensed images. So there are resources available from the library. So in this example I've included here, this comes from the Artstor database, again, which has hundreds and hundreds of images available, absolutely free for you to use for educational use within the institution. So that's another option for you. Other options, if you have an image in a book that happens to be a book within your reading list, then you can have that scanned by the library and you can use that in a class entirely in conformance with the CLA license. So that's an option available to you. And finally, if all else fails, perhaps, then you could get direct permission from the copyright holder. So if there's something you particularly want to use and you're able to contact the person who created that image, you can ask them for permission to reuse that image. Okay, so that's images. So let's have a little look now quickly at video materials. Now, I think the recording process is likely, I would have thought, to make quite low-grade copies of videos that you show within a class. So it's perhaps not a recommended way to make such materials available to your students. These low-grade copies are still going to be subject to copyright, however, so you do need to bear that in mind. So what sort of video materials might we use? Well, on this table here, I've shown 4 of them. So it could be material provided by YouTube. I get a lot of inquiries from people about the use of YouTube videos. I think it's absolutely okay to use these in the normal classroom setting. I recommend that you look for verified sites. The verified ones are the ones which are marked with a tick. And so you can stream this YouTube material in its entirety during a lecture. But if you're using lecture capture, though, then you're only going to be able to use extracts under a fair dealing copyright exception, unless the video has been provided under a Creative Commons license. You might be using Boxer broadcasts for your video. Again, within the normal face-to-face lecture, you can stream this in its entirety during a lecture, although you can only do that to a UK audience. And if you're using lecture capture, then it cannot be viewed outside of the UK. So bear that in mind if you've got distance learners involved. Again, with off-air recordings, using our ERA license, material can be recorded from BBC, ITV, Channel 4, a whole host of broadcasters. This can be streamed live, or copies can be played during normal lectures, again to a UK audience only. And as with Boxer broadcasts, this cannot be captured in a lecture if it's been viewed from outside of the UK. And finally, we have commercial DVDs. Some of you might be using those in lectures. A whole film can be shown for the purpose of instruction in a lecture, but you cannot capture these using a lecture capture system unless you've got permission from the copyright holder. So if you want to use any of this sort of video material in a lecture, it's kind of not allowed, then you're going to have to pause the recording during the content capture session, or edit it out of the recording later on. In any event, where you've got a web-based system such as Boxer broadcasts, then it's probably a good idea to provide your students with a link to that anyway, so they can view the content outside of the lecture. So we've looked at images and video, and finally just to say something about sound recordings. If you're using sound in lectures, as with video, commercially bought CDs can be used in a regular face-to-face lecture, but you cannot capture this, you cannot copy this using a lecture capture system. Podcasts, I don't know if anyone uses podcasts in class. Not so sure about this one. It might be okay to lecture capture these, but if in doubt, check either with the host of the podcast, or if you're unsure, then get in touch with me and I'll look into that for you. And streamed audio from systems such as BBC Sounds, for example, again, that it cannot legally capture that using a capture system, although it can be used in the conventional class. Okay, so those are just a few, there's some specific examples there. So I mentioned that I have some copyright guidelines available on the library website. That's how you find it. There's a Using Resources tab at the top. And if you go down, you will find a link there to copyright guidelines, which I'm adding to all the time. In fact, that's one of my jobs over the coming month or two, is to really add some more information to those copyright pages. The types of material, I've got some information about copyrighted images, which I've just added there. And under the copyright applies to you, that's where I've added the copyright guidelines for content capture, if you want to go and have a look at that. And I'm always interested in any feedback you might have in relation to these copyright guidelines. So if there's anything particularly you want to see there that might be missing, then do get in touch with me and let me know. Yes, as I mentioned before, yes, the copyright policy, if you want to read that, is available from Document Warehouse, and there again is my email address if you want to get in touch with me. So that's really all I wanted to say, and the only slides I wanted to show you. So have any questions come in via the chat?
Yes, we've had quite a few. If you want to read them, I've saved them, so if I'll read them out as we go, if that's okay. So from Darren Cooper, how strict are the rules for the way images are attributed? We have to follow a format. Okay.
Yeah, again, there is guidance, or if there isn't already, there will be guidance on the library website about how to attribute, to acknowledge images. In fact, I saw an email from one of my faculty librarian colleagues recently, who's been creating some more content relating to that. So yeah, guidance will be available for you on how to do that. Once again, if in doubt, send me an example and I will show you how to do it correctly.
Thank you. From Tom Woodbury, does the university have access to any stock image websites such as Alamy, A-L-A-M-Y?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't think that we do. Probably get in touch with the marketing department, who they'll be the contact for that. Yeah, I think no is the answer. On my copyright guidelines page, there is a link there to finding free content, and I have suggested some sites that you can go to where free images are available. You don't have to pay for. Sites like Pixabay, for example, I use quite a lot. So there is a lot out there.
I was going to suggest unsplash.com. That's
yeah, yeah. I've got a link to Unsplash. That's a good one. Yeah.
Also, the university stock image library via the marketing pages, which is pictures of students in the university buildings and things, which you can access as well via marketing. Yeah. That's one.
Sure. Yeah.
So from Shelley Usher, what if we already have digital images supplied by the publishers? Is that okay?
So I've missed some of it. We've got images.
What if we already have digital images supplied by the publishers?
Yeah. Not sure. I think you'd have to check with your publishers on quite what the agreement is with the use of those, because I think all the contracts might be different. So yeah, check with the publisher.
Okay. Steve Whitford, staff are responsible and culpable for the use of copyright of third-party materials. Where would we get very specific guidance? I think we've answered this one. My area is film/TV, so advice please around video essays and using clips in lecture workshops and Moodle.
Okay. Yeah.
So guidance and video.
Right, I think I got that. So yeah, the audio is breaking up a little bit this end. Yeah. Again, get in touch with me if you've got any specific questions about that. Video essays is a subject that has come up over the last month or so, and that is an area that I would like to address on my copyright guidelines. So hopefully within the next few weeks, I will put some information specifically relating to video essays on the website.
Okay. So this is from Mark Youngman. It's to do with people accessing in the UK. How do we control where people view it? It's not just an issue for DL. It's reasonable to presume that international students may use materials for revision when they've returned home.
Yeah, I don't know. How do we control that? I don't know the answer to that.
It's a tricky one.
Anyone out there got any suggestions?
God, blimey. Yeah, that's really tricky. I was thinking of a technical solution, but I don't think there's an easy one. Best in I suppose that.
Oh, sorry, I lost you there.
To that effect, best in mind, encouraging students to only access.
Sorry, Michael, I can't hear you.
Oh, am I breaking up?
Sorry, Mike. Yeah, you're breaking up. But just to sort of say, depending on what the resource is, things like Boxer Broadcast only work within the UK's boundaries anyway. So they could do it on site in the UK, but as soon as you leave that, it then has like the Netflix type restriction. It won't let you view your content outside of the boundaries. Obviously, I don't know about every single one, but I know Boxer Broadcast that holds true.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Yeah, that's a good point. So yeah, so although Boxer Broadcast doesn't allow it, so you've got to be particularly careful if you're using something like that and then it's recorded and then it's been made available to distance learners. That's not allowed, but that's your responsibility to make sure that material isn't made available to distance learners outside of the UK.
Okay. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yeah, I can now. Yeah.
Great stuff. I think I'm going to have to kick my family off of Netflix for the rest of the week. That's my thinking. From Emma Cripps, is there any information about screenshots of software/websites that are being used for online training purposes and/or capturing of demo software, a website using content capture? So screenshots of software and websites.
There is certainly nothing at the moment on my copyright guidelines. I don't know if there's any information around that elsewhere on the website, but I've made a note of that. So I think that would be a good area to add to the guidelines, actually. I haven't written anything yet, but that's a good suggestion. So I will look at that. Because that's something that a lot of people are doing that, aren't they? Capturing screenshots. And I think that there's a bit of a, yeah, that's an interesting area. Thank you.
Especially when it comes to user guides as well. I think we're writing a lot of those at the moment. So
yeah,
topical.
Yeah, I will add that to my list. Brilliant.
Just scanning the questions, see if we've got any more. So what about clip art within MS Word? Can these images be used?
Probably, yeah, I think so. Yeah, I have to look at the terms of use specifically for those, but I think they're absolutely fine to use. And all the time, we've got to sort of take a risk-based approach to this. Don't get too hung up about using this stuff. But yeah, I would have said that's probably okay.
Yeah, I'd just be inclined to believe that that's been and very easily available. So you'd imagine it's covered. But
yeah,
I don't. So I think that's about it in terms. We've had a bit of discussion about VPNs and UK access and those things in the chat. But I think that's the end of the questions.
Okay.
Unless anyone think burning they want to ask.
But if you think of anything else, then yeah, just repeat again. Get in touch with me by email, and I'll have a think about and answer any other questions that you might have.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. Apologies for the confusion at the start of the session. What we'd say is going forward is that please go to the website for the links from here on, and we'll communicate to presenters the updated links. So if you've got a calendar invite at this point, disregard that and go via the website, and that should sort us out. But thank you very much for your understanding.
Sorry, I just added a question.
Oh, Nicola, yeah.
Sorry, I'm really sorry. I just added a question. We use Digimaps, as you know, David,
Yeah.
a lot in our teaching.
Yeah.
Sorry, introducing students to sites and locations. I suppose that falls under capturing software, which was another colleague's question, wasn't it, about screenshots of software, but equally showing those digital maps in PowerPoints that then you capture while you're introducing them to place. What would be the restrictions there?
I don't think there would be any. I would have thought that's absolutely okay to do that using Digimap. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
we have the rights to use, I suppose,
Yeah.
in that sense.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. No, that's okay.
Thank you. Sorry to prolong the session. Thank you.
That's all right. Thank you.